Hello. Boom. Welcome. It is Monday once again, and it's Karen from Spy Labs coming at you with a query, an odd query. Why is perfectionism like an Australian Shepherd? It's an odd statement. Yes, I did that on purpose. So, one thing you may not know about me is that I grew up showing dogs. We weren't like super wealthy people, and I realized that showing dogs is kind of like a wealthy people thing with it. But we showed basset hounds, which are ridiculous dogs, right? They have like these huge, long ears and like saggy eyes and like ridiculous legs that are this long for a body that is like 3.5 feet long. Sweet, 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 wonderful dogs. They are not Australian Shepherds. So, being in dog shows a lot when I was a kid, I learned a lot about different types of dogs. And it's funny because I used to go hiking with a friend and we'd be talking and they'd be like, "Oh, did you notice that person?" And I was like, "You mean the one with the English boxer?" And he would be like, he'd be like, "Oh, that's interesting. You don't notice the people as much as you notice the dogs." I'm like, yeah, I grew up around dogs. So Australian Shepherds are what is called a working dog, right? So they're dogs that were bred to herd sheep or children or anything, right? And these dogs are high energy, intelligent dogs, and they need a job, right? Very much like I live in Colorado. Sorry, I got an eyelash in my eye. I live in Colorado, and there's some people here for a while that had like wolf hybrids. And wolf hybrids, same way, like super intelligent, lot of energy, right? So Australian Shepherds, if you give them a job to do, they are super happy. They're intense. They need boundaries. They will get shit done. There is a dog. I think he just died, but there was a dog in somewhere in Europe that was an Australian Shepherd. I'm just going to work on my eye. Don't even look at my eye while I'm talking to you guys because I got an eyelash stuck in it. There was a dog in Europe that was an Australian Shepherd whose owner was a linguist. And the owner taught the dog, I think it was 350 words, like, go get the caterpillar, get the blue caterpillar, get the green, right? And so this person worked with this dog for a long time, and the dog was like spot on. And the dogs, of course, this lends you to like the whole personality of perfectionism, right? A lot of energy, a lot of drive, want to do it right. They're very intense. If you take an Australian Shepherd and you give them, like, let them out twice a day and never take them for walks, I guarantee that dog, something will go wrong. That dog will chew up your couch. That dog will dig a hole in the wall. That dog will turn mean. They need something to do. So how does this work with perfectionism, right? Okay, we understand Australian Shepherds now. They are like the hyper caffeinated, driven corporate executive type. But so perfectionism is like an Australian Shepherd because you need to give it boundaries and you need to give it something to do, right? And if you let it run everything, it's going to introduce a particular kind of chaos that you probably don't want. A good example is I was listening to a Marie Forleo podcast. I don't know, God, it must have been months ago now, where she was talking about copywriting. And she said one of the problems that people have when they do copywriting for their business is that they try to do it in one pass. So they write a sentence and they try to write it perfectly the first time. And what happens is you lose your momentum when you get caught in the details, right? So one thing that happened today, a couple hours ago, is that Google had an authentication hour and was down for like an hour. That means, you know, Google, Google Mail, Google Drive, Google Calendar, all the Google things were down for an hour. And Google's a great example of not being a perfectionist. So I delve a lot in a lot of Google's new products, like all their different analytics tools and their data studio and all this stuff. And Google will come out with something, and if it mostly works, they will put it out there. And that's what you call like an early adopter kind of thought leader, right? If they waited until stuff was perfect, they would not be one of the industry leaders, right? So see how, like in our own business, right? You got to keep a leash on that Australian Shepherd. You've got to tell that Australian Shepherd, here are the boundaries. Here's what we're going to get perfectionist about. Here is what we are not going to get perfectionist about. So there's a time and a place. And usually the time for being a perfectionist is at the very end of when you're developing something or when you're creating something, right? At the beginning, you need to just drop the naysayer, drop the idea that you're going to create it all perfectly the first time. And I know that's what we all want. And wouldn't life be amazing? But how many more possibilities are open to us when we don't try to nail things down the first time? What was it? I remember a friend of mine was talking about how she was dating this guy. And on the second date, he was like, so when should we get married? Now, I know some people might find that like romantic, but for me, I would run because to me, it feels like someone is trying to nail something down that has not yet developed. And so just envision your perfectionistic mind as an Australian Shepherd. It's great. It goes out, it herds your ideas into the separate stalls. It does everything you want it to do, but you can't let your Australian Shepherd, herd you around, right? When you go to the grocery store, your Australian Shepherd has to stay in the car. I'm sorry, I'm taking this analogy way too far, but it's really fun. And so, yeah, think about Google. Google is not trying to get it. They have staff out the wazoo. They have, some of the most intelligent people probably available working on stuff, but they're not nailing down every little detail. I mean, for God's sake, if you look what they changed their icon do for the Gmail, right? It's not perfect every time, but they keep moving, right? There's a time and a place for perfectionism, and it is awesome. And believe me, I would not put out a website that had a misspelling on it. But my point is, if you try to get everything spelled perfectly when you're just making the outline, it's going to take you way too long, and you're going to miss the opportunity to create something that could be great. So thanks for joining me today. I hope this helped. Messaging Mondays with Spy Labs. And we'd love to help you with your small business needs. We're awesome at websites and digital marketing, and those are our focus. We're really committed to working with small local businesses because we believe that they prop up and actually help create the communities that we're also dependent on. So thanks so much for joining me. See you tomorrow.